Chinese police, right? iJob and BXAQ, which we'll see in a minute. So let's start with CloudPets, right? Instead of being very boring and explaining like you have to press the paw of the toy and all this kind of stuff, I'm just going to play a demo. So you actually see it explained by the vendor. And let me see. No, it's not playing. Like, you cannot hear the audio, right? Let me see. No, it's not playing. Okay, so it's not. You can hear, right? And this is also, yeah, because the audio is going through the HDMI, which is not playing. So let me see. Yeah, because this will be a problem later as well. No, really not. No, should have checked this before. Let me see. Yeah, but there's other demos after that without the sound is not going to. This is also not playing. Stereo? No. Okay, so let me see if I close it and open it again. Maybe this. No? Yes.
Now with CloudPets, there are so many ways to send love through the cloud.
Welcome to Cloud Control. We have a story from Dad.
Story ready to send. Receive a story from your dad who's far away. Or a lullaby from Mom every day. Send a game to play with CloudPets Cat. Or trade messages with Grandma. Easy as that. You can send so much love with CloudPets for $39.99 plus $6.99 processing and handling. Each CloudPet connects to the special free app that will download to almost any smart device. So you can send stories, games, lullabies, and messages. You can call or log on at cloudpets.com. Smart devices not included. Each sold separately. Must be 18 and older to order.
So that's the first one, and then now I'm going to show the one where it explains how the toys actually work.
For family members who live far apart but want to stay close, try this cuddly option. Hi, I'm Laurie from TTPM, and this is CloudPets from Jay at Play. There are 5 animal styles to choose from, and we've got the teddy bear here. Each one works with a free app that lets parents, grandparents, kids, and other long-distance family members send and receive 10-second voice messages. I really miss you and love you. When you purchase a CloudPet stuffed animal, download the free app and register the animal. Then invite family and friends to download the app on their end. To record and send a message, the child presses the toy's right paw. I can't wait to see you when you come to visit. Through the app, determine who to send the message to and then send it. The recipient can then use his or her app to listen to the message and send back a response.
I can't wait to see you when you come to visit.
When your CloudPet has received a message, its red heart will light up and you can squeeze the toy's left paw to hear the message.
I can't wait to see you when you come to visit.
The CloudPet will only play one message at a time, but all the messages can be stored in the app. Only people who you have invited can send messages to your child's CloudPet. Also, a parent can choose to approve each message before it gets sent to the child's CloudPet. Also, through the app, kids can play games with their CloudPet or hear the CloudPet read them stories and sing lullabies. Additional app updates will deliver more interactive content. The CloudPet requires 3 AA batteries, which are not included. Now, the app is a free download from the App Store and Google Play. However, it is not compatible with all iOS and Android smartphones because it uses Bluetooth Low Energy technology. We tried testing it first on an LG G3 Android smartphone, and it was not compatible. While it did work on an iPhone 6 and a newer iPad, we had some trouble connecting the app to the CloudPet. We're not sure what the problem was, but eventually it did connect and work. So despite all of that, this is a cute product that would be great for long-distance grandkids and grandparents or kids and family members deployed in the military. It's just a cute and cuddly way to keep in touch, and it's for ages 3 and up.
I can't wait to see you when you come to visit.
For where to buy and current prices, visit TTPM and...
Okay. So more or less, you know what this is about now. It's just easier if the vendor explains it. So basically, the intended usage is the parent is far from home, and they can send message to the children, and then this message plays through the toy, and then the child can hug the toy and say, "Oh, Daddy, I love you so much," and play this message back to the parent. And this is basically the idea. You might have heard Bluetooth low energy, so this might raise some red flags among the hardware guys among you. So there's a mobile app on the parent phone, which is, this phone is away from the toy. So this all works through the internet, and there's cloud servers and Amazon S3 involved on this. And then there's a mobile app on the children device, which is close to the toy and communicates with the toy using Bluetooth, right? So this sends and receives messages the same way as the parent application using CloudPets servers and Amazon S3, but it also uploads and downloads messages to and from the toy using Bluetooth. So that's basically the idea. So any guesses what could go wrong with this? Any ideas? Somebody? Moving in the right direction, but it gets even better than that. So the first issue was this was all in MongoDB, which was available without authentication. So it was exposed to the internet without authentication. So unauthorized parties downloaded the database. There were 3 ransom requests. It was indexed by Shodan, almost 1 million user records at risk. So anybody could download all the uploaded messages by parents or children to the servers, right? So this is a screenshot from the ransom guys proving that they had access and stuff. And then there were like password hashes, emails, links to all the voice recording on Amazon S3, so you can like dump everything. Yeah, and this was like the first ransom request, like your database is backed up on our server, send 1 Bitcoin to this address and stuff. So this is more or less the timeline. Interestingly, first, this was like at the end of the year, so you know, it's when security researchers have time and stuff, because it's holiday, so they were actually notified by several security researchers multiple times. They didn't do anything, they didn't reply. So a few days later, they got the first ransom. Then another day later, they got 2 more ransoms. And then in the end, like a few days later, like no databases were found to be publicly accessible. So they closed this, right? But all the stuff was already kind of available. So then what's up with the toy, right? Because this is like the cloud part of the situation, but what's going on with the toy? Like, maybe the toy is secure, right? So there's one guy that took a look at the toy security, whose name is Paul Stone, and his research is in this link. So he basically found there's no built-in Bluetooth security features, no authentication for bonding or pairing between the device and the phone. So basically, in plain English, this means that anyone can connect to the toy as long as it is switched on, which would be very useful to an attacker, for example, to play audio through the toy, like, hey, open the door, I'm your daddy, like, around, right? Like some attacker on the street, right, could do this. So it's actually really bad. And let's play a quick demo from Paul himself to show this.
First I connect to the toy. Then I can make the toy start to record my voice. And then I can fetch the recording.
So yeah, basically you could use both. You had both the ability to upload any audio you want to the toy, and you could also use the toy as a spy device because you can like record the audio that's going on in the room and get it downloaded on your computer, right? So that's what, and he made the first demo public, right? So there were a few write-ups about the lack of security. There were some attempts to warn Spiral Toys, which is the company behind this. And then they confirmed that they did not reply to the data breach emails and rather decided to fix them. So that's the official response. So what do you think that they fixed? Any guesses? Nothing? Yeah, that's about right. So then what happened was that Mozilla asked us to verify, like, hey, after all these public kind of blog posts and research and notifications to the vendor, have they actually fixed anything? So this is where we started to audit. So in this test, I say Viking style because Jesper is Swedish. So I decided to to give some, historical funny thing here. So basically Jesper looked at the hardware stuff, so he looked more at the toy, the firmware and stuff, and I looked more at the app. So yeah, what could possibly go wrong, right? So we had these toys to play with. The first thing we found was that the app itself connects, when you tap on the help, it connects to a tutorial website over clear text HTTP, and the domain is actually for sale, so anybody can register it. And you can, for example, prompt users for credentials or prompt users to download malicious apps, for example, with this, right? But because it's done over clear text HTTP, a local attacker in the local network could also like just change the page to whatever they want, like on airport Wi-Fi or any kind of public Wi-Fi that is clear to HTTP, right? And you can do the same thing, like ask for user credentials, prompt user to download malicious apps, and any other malicious stuff that you can think of. So basically, this was when you go to the tours help, and then it would open this domain like, hey, it's open for sale. So this is a recent demo of doing this, and there's no audio on this one. Oh, there is. But yeah, basically you tap on the help thing, and then yeah, it takes you to this domain that is still for sale after this long, and you can see there it's all clear text HTTP, so you can modify all that to whatever you want and automate it with any kind of tool, right? So yeah, not good. So that's that, and let's move on. So yeah. Another thing we found was that Polstone's public proof of concept remains working without any changes. So this is actually something that you can, if you have the toy, you can navigate with your phone to this URL, and you can actually test the toy and upload the audio of Annihilate, Destroy that you saw in the demo before, and it's still working. So yeah, you can like change the proof of concept and change it to, hey, open the door, whatever, and try to fool the child to let you in, right? So it's really bad, and you can, of course, also turn the toy into a spy device by downloading any audio that is going on in the room where the toy is. Another thing we found was that there was no firmware protections in place. So the firmware is installed using Bluetooth Low Energy. So the app downloads the firmware and then pushes it to the toy using Bluetooth Low Energy, but there's no verification in place, no signature or any kind of real integrity checks. There's only a checksum, but you can easily bypass that, so it's not really a good security measure. And then the other thing is that, yes, they use S3, and yes, it's not done properly, like there's no authorization or authentication in place. So yeah, you were right about that. Yeah, so basically, the toys can store and replace voice messages. They expose the information of a lot of users. They can be turned into spy devices. The Mozilla Foundation asked for a retest of the issues, which is what we did. So we gave them the report that, hey, they didn't fix much. This is the report. And then what Mozilla did after this was contact Amazon and all the resellers, and they coordinated the shutdown of these toys because they are insecure, they didn't do anything, they didn't listen to all the public research about it or any security researchers notifying them about all this. So in the end, a company that didn't take security seriously actually got hit pretty hard, and I think they are bankrupt now. So yeah, the one story where actually not taking security seriously had an impact, you know? So not always the case. So let's move on to the Chinese apps. So there's two apps, iJob and BXAQ. So let's first start with iJob, and I'll show a video now in a second that will explain more quickly the political background of this. Basically, the Chinese have a minority population that is of a Muslim religion, and I suppose what they are afraid of is kind of Islamic terrorism or something. So there's some stuff like a lot of people disappeared on this area, and they have these apps to kind of control this population and gather as much information as they can about them. So the background of the story is that Human Rights Watch requested a project funded by the Open Technology Fund to report and document the findings of these apps to investigate the potential violation of human rights. So the main question is, does this system of systems, that we'll explain why this is called such in a few, does this potentially compromise the human rights of the Chinese population, right? So this is the main question of behind these audits, right? To find out the answer to this. So the iJob app is basically a policing program based on big data analysis, and this program aggregates data about people, usually without their knowledge, and it flags data that it deems potentially threatening to officials, right? So this is from Human Rights Watch. And let me show a quick video where they explain it, because I'm actually not very good at politics, so they will do it a much better job than me. So.
I used to be one of those people, like, I got nothing to hide, I'm just a student. But I was very wrong. They're targeting everyone. As long as you're going out of your house, you're being surveilled.
In Xinjiang, in northwestern China, 13 million Turkic Muslims are already enduring extraordinary suppression at the hands of the Chinese government. And authorities there are building a surveillance state to be able to track their every move.
Across the northwestern province of Xinjiang, an estimated 1 million Chinese Muslims have vanished into a vast network of detention centers for what China calls re-education.
The region is now under what's probably the most intense government surveillance in the world.
Every 200 meters would have a police checkpoint. And then on top of that, there are all these checkpoints at public places wherever you go. If you're Uyghur, they stop you. They would just say, "Where's your ID? I want to check your ID." They would punch in the ID number, and then they would see everything about you.
One tool at the heart of Xinjiang's surveillance system is the IJOP, or the Integrated Joint Operations Platform. The IJOP has an app that's used by police and government officials to track extraordinary amounts of personal information about individuals, ranging from their religious habits to their blood type.
Human Rights Watch got a hold of a copy of the app and used a technique called reverse engineering to look at the source code, basically the design of the app. This is what it looks like when an officer pulls up an individual's profile.
So basically, I'll stop the demo now because this will make more sense later. Basically what happened was they leaked the app to us. We did the reverse engineering and stuff, and we translated the app into a broken English version of the app, because of course it's in Chinese, so it's for Chinese people. And this is basically what the translated app looked like. And we were giving this to the human rights activists who were then evaluating, like, is this information they are capturing like a human rights violation or not? Like, they were making that kind of judgment while we were doing mostly the technical stuff, like the reversing and trying to figure out what data they are collecting, what are they doing with this data, where are they uploading it to, and stuff like this, right?
They enter the person's name, ID number, ethnicity, and then the officer takes a photo of the person's ID card to see if that matches the person's face.
And
As you scroll, you see more information is being collected from the person, including their address, how tall they are, their blood type, their educational level, their occupation, their political affiliation, information about their car, license plate, driver's name, driver's ID card number.
On its surface, most of this information looks like standard fare for police, but as we dig deeper into the app, we can see that ordinary, routine legal behavior is being treated by authorities as suspect.
This is what it looks like when the IJOP system has flagged someone whose phone number the system has lost track of. The IJOP system sends an alert to government officials to go and investigate the reason why that phone number has gone missing, and note if this person is suspicious and requires further investigation. Or here's another example. This is a report that the IJOP system sends to government officials about someone who used an unusual amount of electricity. The report includes the date in which the unusual amount of electricity used was logged by the system, how much electricity was used, what was the meter reading, and what is the usual range of electricity used. Then the government official is required to go and investigate this person.
If you use WhatsApp or Viber or Telegram, that might be considered suspicious. If you go out the back door of your house instead of the front, the police might turn up to investigate. The list goes on. The information from the app feeds into a central system and combines with information from other surveillance systems, including CCTV cameras that rely on facial recognition software, and even Wi-Fi sniffers that are used as people walk through checkpoints to pull information off their phones. The IJOP system aggregates all this data about people, flags those it deems suspicious, and sends alerts to nearby officials. These dubious criteria are being used to identify large numbers of people, many of whom are then arbitrarily locked up.
In total, I spent about a month in different jails. I wasn't officially accused of anything or charged with anything. The official paperwork said something like, I was arrested under the suspicion of disrupting the societal order. And after that, I was basically under house arrest, because they marked my ID card.
It's time for the Chinese government to stop persecuting perfectly legal behavior. It's time for the Chinese government to end its repression of Turkic Muslims in Xinjiang, and it's time for it to dismantle this surveillance state.
Okay, so they explained it much better than I ever could, so I thought it was better that they explained it. So now let's talk a bit about who actually developed this, right? So this is done by a state-owned military contractor that was initially set up in Sydney, in Australia, with the primary focus areas of artificial intelligence, mapping, and big data. So this is kind of the background, and then we looked at the app, but as you saw in the video, like the app is a very small part of the whole thing, because then this ties with other data, with CCTV, facial recognition, Wi-Fi sniffers that check all the Wi-Fi networks your phone is probing and stuff. So all this data is like aggregated. So let's talk about the technical stuff, which is what we actually did. So the first problem is, of course, an app written for Chinese police is in Chinese, it's not in English. And we had like no idea, like you see all these Chinese symbols, and we didn't speak Chinese. So we had to decompile the APK, so you can do this with APK tool, which is awesome. And then you normally look for a strings XML file, use Google Translate, then replace this strings XML with the English equivalent, and then recompile, and then you have an app that is not proper English, is broken English, but is like good enough to know more or less what the app is doing, and at least much better for us Westerners without Chinese knowledge to be able to know what the app is doing, right? So another thing we had to do was to be somewhat stealthy. So to do this, we set up Tor in a test environment, set up Burp to use Tor as an outbound proxy, and then you just man in the middle of the app through Burp, so we can still inspect the traffic, but our actual IPs are kind of hidden from the Chinese government, right? So yeah, we can inspect the traffic without leaking our IPs, because being stealthy was kind of part of the package that we were supposed to deliver. Then another issue was that because this app is meant for police officers to log into a backend system where they upload all this information about people, we of course didn't have a valid login for this because I mean they gave us the leaked app, but we didn't have like credentials for this. So we had to figure out a way to give the activists access to all the screens after the login so that they could investigate if this was a human right violation or not, and this kind of stuff. So for this, we modified the app again, export all activities, then provided a list with ADB commands that they could then run with a script to like make the app like open all these screens that would normally not be available, right? And this way, they could review all the stuff that you saw in the video. So what we found in the app itself. So one thing was the recording of height and blood type, which is interesting. I'm not really sure how these can be helpful for counterterrorism, but I don't know, maybe there's some reason. Yeah, so they wanted to know, so this is a quote from them, like, we want to know to what extent the authorities can justify this by saying this is all counterterrorism. So far, it's only a few mentions, right, of terrorism. So the app gathers a lot of data collection, probably we think for anomaly detection, like kind of establish a baseline, and then if something goes out of that, kind of then focus the investigation efforts on the stuff that goes out of the normal. Probably it's assumed that that's probably the goal. And yeah, to have more reference data, and then it mines and gathers data on individuals. This is an app that the police officer will use themselves, just questioning a person, or like going to somebody's house and asking questions and stuff. So it's an app that police use like directly and manually fill out the information, right? So probably with strong indicators that data does not match the information from the headquarters, then this might reveal suspicious, problematic subsets of users or groups, right? So we had to look at the app and look for evidence of this kind of stuff. So you can see here the height and the blood type, but you can also see things like religious atmosphere, religious name other, political status, then there's the date of birth, nation, relationship, card number, destination country, you know, there's like a lot of stuff, new ID card, you know, passport, like pretty much all there's the address, photo, car, you know, work, education level. So you have like a lot of information. So this is kind of the evidence that we were looking at. It was not a traditional pen test. It was more like helping the human rights activists to have evidence to support what they thought the Chinese were doing, right? So we were basically just answering questions, like what evidence can you find about this, and we just look at the app and try to figure it out. So this is the broken English screenshot of the app, and you can see here height, blood type, degree, professional, political look. So this kind of stuff. Then another interesting thing is the electricity consumption, right? And this is kind of interesting, right? Like, because how can this be a problem, right? Like how much electricity you use. According to Human Rights Watch, then this is problematic because they are logging everybody's electricity consumption, and they are looking for an abnormal level of electricity use, and then they employ a database to gather all this information about individuals. So with this, the way it seems to work is that a police officer receives a new task, and then they can file a report to investigate the occurrence of unusual power consumption, and then they can like go to the house where this person lives, and then they fill a report basically, and they can mark any reasons for this. So this prepares the ground for additional investigation by the public security agency. Then in case of a false positive, they can file the actual electricity meter value, and then a couple of things that occur to us that they might want to check this for is possibly cryptocurrency mining or growing cannabis indoors. could be two ways in which your electricity bill is going to go up. So maybe that's what they're checking. And then this is a screenshot of this part of the application, right? So phone number, electricity meter number, power address, abnormal consumption, and all this kind of stuff. So what do you think, right? Like, should the government be able to monitor how much electricity everybody uses? Raise your hand. Nobody? Is this a privacy intrusion? And can this help stop terrorist attacks? Anybody? Okay, so just curious about this, because these things are very like, everybody, well, some people will have different opinions, right? Then another thing was they were looking for problematic tools, right? So they had an option in the app to look for problematic tools, and this includes tools that may be implemented to make explosives. So the officer submits a report to the HQ about explosive materials and tools. Then the officer can ask for an investigation of the matter, and then this investigation can be further handed over and carried on by the public security agency. So it's kind of a similar approach to the electricity stuff. This is a screenshot of the app doing this kind of stuff. So is there a blasting tool or material? Again, can you hear me? Yeah. So this is the broken English version of the app. So it's not like a proper translation, but more or less you get an idea. Like, it's looking for blasting stuff, and then what is the reason for the exception? Unable to explain, there is suspicious, and then basically the police officer fills this out and sends it to the headquarters, and then they investigate from there. Another interesting thing was if somebody stops using their phone, right? Then they also track this, right? So there's an activity and data processing that we looked at in the compiled source code, that there's evidence of checking this kind of stuff, when somebody is gone off the grid. So we gather these fields from the app, right? So this is like the way we launched that activity, and then by investigating, we got like these fields. Like, for example, there's like longitude, latitude, so the last location of the phone where it disappeared, and other fields, right? Like telephone number and other stuff. So this is also something interesting, right? Like, if somebody stops using their phone, they will also track this and where was the last location where the phone was. So this is some screenshots on the app. Some stuff could not be translated properly, but here we have like name, ID number, and stuff like this. Yeah, and to track this, we were like following like the activity, then it goes to a view model, then the view model loads, it's loaded like this, and then this loads something else that's called misphone res entity, and then this is like basically setting the longitude and the latitude, and yeah, and then from this we basically do like some shell one-liner to gather all the fields from the compiled Java code, and that's what produced this list that I showed earlier. So this is what we gave like the human rights activists, like, hey, this is the data they are gathering for this, right? Now another thing is communications for investigations and arrests. So it was another question, right? How does the officer communicate with the headquarters? Because there's some terms like immediate arrest and detain for investigation. So how are they communicating? So what we found in the app was there was some XMPP. So it seems there's some chatting features. So this is the code. It connects to an IP and a port. And yeah, it's like unclear how all this works together, but more or less we found like some indicators about this information being pushed to the headquarters, and also police officers might be able to edit this information as well. So yeah, this is some more code about this. And yeah, and then just a reminder that this is like a small picture of the whole thing. So the app that the police officers use is just the app itself, but then this information is combined with the CCTV cameras that have facial recognition and night vision. So even during the night, they know where everybody is. The Wi-Fi sniffers track computers, smartphones, and other network devices. They also track license number plates, citizen ID, card numbers, vehicle ownership, health insurance, family planning, banking, and legal records. So they combine all this information, and using some like big data stuff, they try to take a picture of this, right? So there are a few checks on this, and then like we're European, we have like these privacy laws and stuff, but it seems like in China there's no unified privacy or data protection law, so they can actually like do this legally because like they are the government, so they can do this. And yeah, then of course we don't know like how securely this data that is collected is being stored. Like we don't know if there's encryption on the server or not, and what kind of security protections are in place. We didn't look at that. We only looked at the app. And then there's no formal system for people to find out what information is held about them. Like in GDPR, you have these rights, like you can ask a company, hey, what information do you have about me? And the company is like forced to tell you, like, hey, we're holding all this information about this, then you have the right to correct this information and all this kind of stuff, but this doesn't exist in China, right? This is a picture of the Wi-Fi sniffers. Yeah, so it's unclear how all this is related. But it connects to databases that the police manage and have access to, and it gathers like very specific data about people. Yeah, and it tracks like energy consumption, political views, religious atmosphere, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, we did this review in collaboration with the Human Rights Watch team because, of course, they were the ones that knew if something was a human rights violation or not, and we basically did just the technical stuff, trying to provide data that answered their questions. And yeah, and we were just a technically driven team and an unbiased investigating entity, right? So yeah, we were just based on technical evidence, based on reverse engineering, and that's it. This is a picture of a police officer maybe using the app. And let's see. I don't have much time for this, but let's try. So there's another app that's BXAQ, and this is basically gathering data in a different way. So they install an app on your phone, and then they collect some data, like your contacts, your messages, and stuff like this. They upload this to a police server, and then they uninstall this app and give you your phone back. So let me play a quick video about this.
Chinese border guards are installing surveillance malware on tourists' phones. An investigative report by the New York Times, The Guardian, Motherboard, Süddeutsche Zeitung, and German public broadcaster NDR has uncovered a systematic program to harvest data from the phones of tourists entering Xinjiang. According to a report in The Guardian, tourists entering Xinjiang by land from Kyrgyzstan are forced to unlock their phones at border checkpoints and give their PIN codes to border officials. The phones are taken away by Chinese authorities to a separate room. iPhones are plugged into a reader that scans them, while Android phones have a spyware app called Feng Cai installed on them. The malware downloads emails, text messages, phone contacts, call logs, and scans the device for more than 73,000 different items, including images and videos related to Islamic terrorism or the Quran. A traveler told The Guardian he had been alerted by an international travel agent and by tourist information while in Kyrgyzstan that something would happen to his phone at the border. He said they expected a GPS tracker would be installed. He checked his phone after he got it back and found the malware. In most cases, the Android app is uninstalled by authorities before the phone is returned to the tourist. However, some tourists have still found the app installed on their phones.
Yeah, so basically, this is a quick, it's not like the best video, but more or less it gives you an idea. So again, like the APK was given to us, we did all the reversing and stuff again, and then we looked at what the app was doing. We followed a white box methodology because of course we can like decompile the APK and get the sources. And then we tackled both the source code and the running application. So again, this test was sponsored by the Open Technology Fund. And the app, of course, isn't available on Google Play or anything, so it was, again, like leaked and given to us, so we just sideloaded it. And yeah, and then the research had to be like, again, a little bit stealthy, like not leaking our IPs and stuff. And yeah, so basically, this is again to investigate what the phone has, and if there's like anything suspicious, then they are going to investigate. So yeah, and we had like to hide our IPs and stuff as well from them. So some of the information we found to be collected was calendar entries, phone contacts, country codes, dialed numbers, like the phone identifiers, Wi-Fi MAC, Bluetooth MAC. If the device is rooted, then the Android model, all text messages sent and received, information about the base station, and the used hardware. So there's some quick overview of the data that was being gathered. Then there's some app that they download and gathers more information. Yeah, I'm just going to skip over this. And then there's some configuration file that we found where like there's this data and some like credentials and stuff. So let's see, yeah, there's basically some reference file paths that I looked up inside of the SD card to check if there's some files there. It's searching for phone numbers, login names, it's searching for, it's using SMS permissions, so it can dump all the SMS messages, the sent ones and the received ones. Then it also checks all the files stored in the SD card with a hash comparison, and it extracts all the information is like bundled as a zip file without any password protection, and then it's uploaded to a police server. So that's more or less how it works. So it gathers all the information from the phone, it saves it into a zip file, and then it sends it to a police server. Yeah, there's an indication of a Wi-Fi server, but the code doesn't support a feature that supports an open hotspot. So this provides some indication that it's connected to a specific LAN location. And then, yeah, I'm going to show a little bit later. Yeah, so this is basically this. And then another funny thing is they like skip the SSL checks, so they have like an allow all hostname verifier. If you look at the Android documentation, this is basically going to allow like any hostname to be allowed, and then the check server trusted is also empty. You're supposed to raise an exception here if the certificate is not valid, and they are not raising anything. So basically anybody could man in the middle this, but of course if you are man in the middle in the police application, you are inside of the police network, so maybe they have bigger problems. So maybe it's not a concern for them. And then, yeah, data dumped in the SD card without, yeah, and because the data is dumped in the SD card, anybody can like get the SD card later and just read all this data, right, from the SD card itself. So this is also insecure, like even for the person where this app was run, even after the phone has been handed back to them. Yeah, I think I'm short on time, so I'm just rushing through this. Yeah, these are the main apps. And then one thing I wanted to show is the main difference between the iJob app is it's using a public server, and then this is using a local server. So this app is used like inside of the police network, and this app is used like using the internet, right? So that's the main difference between the two apps. The BXAQ app, which is the one we're talking about now, basically like scans the phone, uploads the information, and then they are supposed to uninstall it. But as you saw in the video, like sometimes they forgot to do this. Yeah, they gather a lot of data. Yeah, so the human rights activists raised concern. Then this was like all over the news, and yeah, there's some loopholes on this. And then this was all, like again, we were just technically driven, trying to answer questions for the human rights activists. But we are not like into the politics of all this and stuff, right? So yeah, and then we had these apps in the mobile course. So if you're interested, you can pick me and we can talk about it. We had these courses in this year. And yeah, and that's it. I think we have a little bit of time for questions.
Any questions for Abraham? Just raise your hand.
not really. We're just given the apps for review, but we don't know, like, we don't have any information about this. Maybe, I don't know. I suppose other similar governments do similar things, but this is like pure speculation. I don't have like the data to back it up. Anybody else? It was more quick and dirty. Like all these, like skip the SSL validation and stuff was a little bit like, you know, not very professional. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was the main impression, that it was not very professional. But it was not the focus of the audit, so you know, we were not actually looking for the quality of the code. We were just looking for evidence of what kind of data is being collected. From what we saw, it wasn't like a great app, but you know, yeah, if it does the job for them, that's all they need, right? Yes?
I have the question: did you check out what kind of encryption was done on the app that was gathering the data? How the data was encrypted on the SD card from this XQ app?
There was no encryption on the SD card, so this was the problem, right? Like they are gathering all this data, saving it into a zip file that is unencrypted, and saving it into the SD card. Then they upload it to the police server, but they don't delete it from the SD card, so they hand you back your phone, and then I don't know, somebody steals your phone or something. So this zip file is still on the SD card. So somebody, without even like entering your PIN or whatever, takes the SD card out, plugs it into a computer, and can read this zip file, right? So without knowing your PIN or unlocking the phone in any way, somebody could get access to all your messages and all this information that the police is gathering, right?
And this was like hidden in a folder of the application?
No, it was on the SD card itself. So anybody taking the SD card out could read it. It wasn't actually protected, so. I'm going to hand the mic over to.
Thank you. Usually you need a permission to attack to pen test an application, and now you're pen testing something of the Chinese government. Do you know, but you have a permission from somebody who has no permission somehow. Do you know about legal implications about that, or are you threatened or afraid of something? Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. So basically, we were not officially authorized by the Chinese government, of course. This was an audit requested by Human Rights Watch and the Open Technology Fund. But when you're hacking a mobile app, you're actually hacking yourself. We were not like probing Chinese servers or anything. So that's kind of legal. It's like, you know, finding XSS in your browser without like DOM XSS that is not like going to the server or anything. You're just hacking yourself, so it's legally safe. And I don't think, to be honest, that they care too much about this, because, you know, whatever, you know, like, they are like the government, so they can do whatever they want. I don't think they care. So that's my personal opinion. I don't know if I answered the question. I think we're out of time.
Yes, coffee break is next. We'll meet again at 11:10.